So I'm going to talk about something that might make you a little uncomfortable, but it's okay because we ain't about comfort over here. So my husband and I went to a event, I guess you can say, or like a class in church called Elevated Marriage. It was my first time there. It was his second time there. And I look at the topic and I'm like, what are they going to talk about today, right? And I look down at the paper and it says sex and marriage. So I was kind of like taken aback by it because I've actually been like in my mind thinking about that a lot, only because I look at sex from a negative lens, kind of. I could say God is healing me from that because of my past. And I want to give y'all some revelation that I just got from yesterday. So a lot of us grew up being very promiscuous. If you did not grow up that way, bless you, you saved yourself from so much damage. But because I grew up like that, when I got into a relationship that was actually a real relationship and now my marriage, I realized that because God took away my desire for promiscuity and all that stuff, that I didn't have a desire anymore, even like for my husband. And although my husband and I would have sex, it was like really hard for me. Like I really had to push myself to go there. And it was like an internal battle I fought because I felt so bad. I'm like, am I not attracted to my husband? Like, why don't I want to have sex? Yada, yada, yada. And I would have this conversation with God all the time in my head and never talk to my husband about it. So yesterday I'm sitting in there and I'm just like, I can't believe God is answering this prayer for me right now. So here was the one that stood out to me the most. In the world, we are taught that sex is better outside of marriage. But in the kingdom of God, and why he tells us to wait, is because sex with your husband, when you become one with them, is actually like the highest form of praise to God. Like our bodies were meant to have sex and meant to be unified with one another in deep intimacy. And this lady told me, she was like, some of you need to forgive yourself for being promiscuous. Some of you need to forgive yourself or forgive the people that have introduced you to perversion and the things that you've seen even like as a child. And that made so much sense to me, because think about it, you guys. If we were never meant to have sex outside of marriage, then we wouldn't be having these weird thoughts inside of marriage of, oh, I'm not that person anymore. Oh, I'm not promiscuous anymore. Oh, I'm not this. Oh, I'm not that. But that's a lie. You were meant to be hot with your husband or hot with your wife. You would have became a freak anyways, eventually, with your husband or your wife, right? I don't know, man. I hope that hit y'all the way it hit me, because it made a lot of sense to me. It'll only make sense to the people that it's meant for. True.
So, fellas, this is a very interesting one right here, but I appreciate this young lady's honesty in terms of her being a 304 in her youth, basically delivering the buns to every Peter, Paul, and all the rest of the disciples as well. But before we get into it, man, it's your favorite everything, JR Wisdom. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button along with the bell. That way you receive all the notifications for all of my future videos that have content like this. Let's run it up to 100,000. Quit playing with me. So, as weird as this sounds, I have heard something like this before. And it goes along with the, you could be hitting the wall, or at a certain point you've just been pummeled through and too many dudes was stomping the yard, too many dudes was desecrating, and you happen to settle for good buddy at whatever, because she still looks young, you know. But by the time you settle for homie, which really wasn't the homie that was smashing before, you weren't really into him like that, and you probably, in the way you're making it seem like Jesus had to give you permission to clap those cheeks, right? Which I don't think is the feelings you were having, because she hinted at it as well while she was talking, if you heard, that you have these thoughts even before you, when you're still a virgin, you have thoughts about certain things. But this is your husband, and this goes on a lot. If you're really into him and you're having sex and you're not into him, and then you're saying it's because dude's sex was probably whack at the end of the day. He probably had whack sex. You just married him because you felt it was time. You played enough in the fields, and this is what happens. You know what I'm saying? You're a retired 304, or you were a retired booty clapper, And the man you settle with, he just doesn't get you wet and hot like you should be. And you're looking for church to fix it with these workshops to finally give you permission to be able to, give it up to your husband like you feel he should be getting it. But withholding, which I know she didn't say she was withholding the Bunz, she was just reluctant to give it all to him. And fellas, when you're with a woman, you know how things can get, and when she's being a cold dead fish and she's not really into it. And me personally, that just turns me off. Like, the little man just passes out at that point. You know what I'm saying? So for her to say that, fellas, if you're with a woman like this, you have to know that a woman, she's not really into you. For her to blame it on Jesus and God, and she did say she was so promiscuous and getting fucked on the regular growing up, and maybe throughout her 20s, however old she is, that desire when she got married, why would God send you a husband and not send you the desire, if that's the case from those beliefs, and not you having a desire for your husband? It's supposed to be fruitful and multiply. Sex feels good for a reason. Now, if it doesn't, it's because you're probably thinking about all these men that you've been with, and this guy just doesn't measure up to those, which is another reason why it goes back into the pair bonding. You know what I mean? Or the sexual chemistry that may go. You may like the fact that he's a provider and all these things like that, but you're just not into him. And that goes for a lot of women. You just may be desensitized. This goes for men too. You whack off too much. You watch too much, X vids in the hub. By the time you do settle down with a woman, this is sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, it can happen where you just, you got ED. And it's just the nature of it. That's why it is important. I wouldn't recommend anybody to basically, because having a bunch of sex isn't going to bring you peace. With women, there's some women that's just into sex, and it sounded like she was very promiscuous. And there's some women that they look at that as a form of, bonding with a man or getting a guy to like you. And a lot of young girls end up doing that. So I don't think, I hear what she's saying, but all of a sudden, I don't think there's just a switch that comes on that basically Jesus gave you permission to get freaky with the homie. I can't see that happening. I just can't see it happening. And I think, ladies, I get it. Women will stick with dudes that got ED because they're a good guy. They'll stick with a dude that may not be packing, and that he may have the little man may not be the best, but he. Buddy still gives her butterflies. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes it's, you even got women who are with men that intimacy is not a big thing. And when I say intimacy, the sex isn't really a big thing at the end of the day. It's so much more. And that's at the bottom of the list. A lot of times the older you get, but for her to say this, that I wasn't giving my all, or I didn't want to do it because God took away the desire. He didn't take away the desire for you to have a husband. You obviously wanted to get married, or did you not want to get married? Did you want to marry this guy? And this is how women end up cheating or stepping out a lot of times, because they don't want to communicate. And it sounds like, if you heard her as well, guys, she wasn't communicating this to her husband. She wasn't communicating that maybe he wasn't pleasing her. Not that it's his fault, but this is why it is important to communicate with your partner instead of just letting them think that they're, pleasing you and they're really not. And maybe sometimes it's just, you're just not into them like that. When you think about the homies, because a lot of women will do that, they'll think about the homies they had in the past, and they'll go back to a split second, like Chad, Chris, Steve was pummeling these Bunz, right? And I can't get past that. I can't get past that feeling I got with these guys. But those guys aren't good for me. I'm at the point where this is my husband. He's safe, he's secure, he treats me well, but this is what's lacking. And for your husband, unless he has a religious love like yourself, because it looks like you're a born again, wannabe virgin, I mean, it's understandable, man. But I think it's just you not being into him like that, because it's either you're into him or you're not. If you're saying God took this away from you because you were into that, then it is what it is. But let me know what you guys think. What you think about what she's talking about? Comment below. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Hit me up on Linktree, Facebook, and all those things. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Hit me up on Linktree to book a one-on-one with yours truly. Purchase all of my books, merch, t-shirts. It helps to support the channel. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Do that like right now. And check this out. Much blessings and abundance. I appreciate you guys for tuning in with me. Stick around for the next video that's going to pop up on the screen. And that's where I'm going to see you guys at. This is Wisdom. I'm out of here. Peace.
It's God's beat maker.
And I don't know. I will put a light in the sky for the G's that done turn memory from go. Blessings we send to the ghetto youth them.